whenever you go through a passage or when you're reading something, then there's something called the structure of the passage. Now, the structure of the passage is basically the way that the passage is organized. Now, it could be organized based on many different factors. For example, the number of paragraphs, or the way in which it is shown. Perhaps like in a newspaper article, you might have seen that usually you have two columns over here and over here. Or perhaps in a poem, you have the stanzas separately kept in a poem. Similarly, when you have a reading passage, it could have different structures. Now, these structures include, firstly, you have description, right? So, how is the information in the passage structured? It's structured according to description. That's when you have something that is being described. For instance, if I have something that tells me about a book, about the cover of the book, how it looked, where it was placed, how important it was, all of that would be describing the book, right? So there you have the structure as description. You could have the structure based on cause and effect. So in such reading text, you might have a cause for a particular situation, and then you'd follow it up with the effects. Let's say there is a passage on a particular natural disaster happening, for example, an earthquake. So you have the cause of the earthquake, which would come at the beginning. So here you have the cause of the earthquake, and then you have the effects. So effect 1, it would be in one paragraph, effect 2 would be in the second paragraph, a possible solution maybe, or maybe remedial situations, remedial steps that are taken to, figure out how to deal with the effects of the cause, which was the earthquake that happened. So this is one structure that a passage could take if you have a cause and effect situation. Now, you could have the structure based on a comparison or a contrast. So in that case, sometimes what some authors tend to do is that they would place the description of one aspect, so let's say A, and then they would compare it to something like B. So you could have one entire or 2-3 paragraphs on A, describing A, or the features of A, and then you'd compare them by placing 2-3 paragraphs of B. Another alternative way in which you could compare or contrast essays or texts would be to have a structure where you have one paragraph, you're taking a consideration of both A and B. Let's say A is, living on Earth, and here you're living on Mars. So we're comparing the life on Earth to living on Mars, and I'm comparing the two in the same paragraph. And then I have the second paragraph where again I talk about another factor of living on Earth and then living on Mars. So factor 1 in one paragraph, factor 2 in the other, maybe a third paragraph with a third factor, and so on and so forth until you reach a conclusion. So that could be another way in which you could structure your passage. Then you have an order or a sequential structure for your passages. Some passages where you're describing perhaps the events that have taken place one after the other. So you could have, if you look at certain articles about the achievements of people, so they usually have a structure of starting from their childhood, their early years, to their beginning achievements, to their later achievements in life, and then finally their legacy, like in an autobiography or a biography. So they usually follow a chronological sequence. Chronological means time-based. So a chronological sequence would be followed where you have the earliest event being written first, and then you have the middle events, and then you have the later events, depending on the time. So they could be in order of time, they could be in order of place as well. Perhaps let's say that an event took place in point A or country A, and then it took place in point B, and then in country C. So here you would be talking about it in terms of the place. So first you cover the first place A, what happened there, and then what happened in B and what happened in C. Now you could have the structure where you're dealing with a problem and then you're showing the solutions. So some passages are based on dealing with showing up a problem and then how it is being solved. Let's say the problem is traffic jams in the country, and how to reduce them. And the solutions are listed one by one. So there you would have maybe the first paragraph being the introduction. The introduction would tell me about the problem, that traffic jams are a huge problem in the city, and because of the traffic jam, not only is work affected, but people are late for important events, which is hampering the economy. And then you could have solution 1 in the second paragraph, solution 2, possible solution 2 in the third paragraph, etc., and so on and so forth until you reach the conclusion. So based on what kind of reading passage you have, they could have different structures like we've already seen. It's important for us to understand what the structure, or to identify the structure of a passage, because it really helps you when you are writing your own essays, or when you are writing something by yourself, because then you understand, if I know that I'm going to write a cause and effect essay, I'm writing about a cause of something and I want to write the effects, then it will help me understand how best to structure my essay. So the next time that you read anything at all, think a little bit about how it's been organized, or how the ideas in your reading comprehension passage have been organized, so that you can use those skills when you write.